Alright, so the topic we're going to talk about today is sampling. Sampling design. Sampling design is the method used to choose a sample. There are 5 different types of sampling: a simple random sample, a stratified random sample, a cluster sample, a systematic sample, and a convenience sample. Later in the video, we are going to talk about bias. Bias is any systematic failure of a sample to represent a population of interest. The 4 types of bias are undercoverage bias, response bias, non-response bias, and voluntary response bias.
A simple random sample is a representation of a group where each member has the same probability of being chosen. For example, if we wanted to gather data regarding 5 students' grades in our STAT class, we would use a simple random sample to reduce bias. For example, we would pick Laura, William, Evan, Taylor, and Brandon to use in our sample.
A stratified random sample is a sample where you divide all members into 2 groups, then randomly select members from each group.
When asking high schoolers their favorite kind of candy on Halloween, we're going to stratify our sample into boys and girls. We randomly selected Joey to represent our boy population. What's your favorite kind of candy?
Reese's.
We randomly selected Katie to represent our girl population. What's your favorite kind of candy?
Twizzlers. This is a stratified sample because we separated our groups that have common characteristics and then randomly selected a person from each subdivision.
A cluster sample is where you select an entire group from a pre-existing division. An example of a cluster would be if we were to select all the schools from the Central League area to get a wider representation of the population. We would ask these students what their favorite class is.
A systematic sample is a statistical method involving the selection of elements from an ordered sampling frame.
Hi, Miss. Congratulations. You've been picked to be in our survey.
Okay.
Congratulations. You've been selected to be in our survey. That was a systematic sample because we used every second person to walk into the store.
A convenience sample is a way of gathering information from the source most available to form a representation of the population. For example, if Mr. Schiller wanted to conduct a survey to find out high schoolers' favorite candy, he could ask the students in his 3 classes this semester. These students are available for him to conveniently conduct the survey. This type of sample is a non-probability sample, and it has the potential to give an inadequate representation of the population.
One type of bias is called undercoverage bias. Undercoverage bias is a sampling scheme that differs from its population of interest by excluding or underrepresenting some part of the population.
An example of undercoverage bias would be if Bethel Township sent out a survey online about taxes. The elderly would not have the proper resources to respond to this survey, whereas the younger population would be able to use the internet and respond. This is an example of undercoverage bias because it would not adequately represent the older population's responses.
The second type of bias is called response bias. Response bias is anything that influences responses that falls in the category of response bias.
Hi, sir. Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure, no problem.
Would you prefer to go to Stanford over Villanova?
Yeah, that sounds like a better.
Hi, sir. Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure, no problem.
If you had the option to go to either university, would you want to go to Stanford University or Villanova University?
Probably Villanova. In the first question, the wording that said Stanford over Villanova swayed me to answer with Stanford. However, in the second question, there was no response bias because I was not swayed to choose a certain university.
A third type of bias is called non-response bias. Non-response bias occurs when individuals selected for the sample fail to respond, cannot be contacted, or decline to participate.
Could everyone please pass your surveys to the front of the room?
Mr. Schiller, I actually it's mine out. I can't hand it in.
Oh, that's going to cause a non-response bias. You're going to skew our data. This is non-response bias because the data collected does not fully represent the sample population.
The fourth type of bias is called voluntary response bias. Voluntary response bias is when people choose to respond rather than using randomization to obtain a sample.
Hi, ma'am. Welcome to PetSmart.
Hi.
We can collect your survey sheets right over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have enough time to fill that out. This would be voluntary response bias because I chose not to fill out the survey.
In conclusion, sampling is a great way to gather information from a population. However, you have to be sure to reduce bias so your population's information is not skewed.
Error alert! Did you catch it?
That in our simple random sample, all the pieces of paper were different sizes. That means it's easier to pick one than another.